Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. The legalization of mobile sports betting in North Carolina is getting closer. Today, sign-ups began for potential bettors who are now able to put money in their accounts. The sign-up launch is one of a couple developments as we get closer to the start of sports betting. WRAL Sports Investigative reporter Brian Murphy joins us to explain how the process works. Brian, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So what has been going on behind the scenes as the planning for this launch has been going since lawmakers approved sports betting in last summer?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the Lottery Commission's been tasked with coming up with rules and regulations around all aspects of this. So how operators operate, how they can advertise, how people with problem gambling can exclude themselves from these lists. So a lot of that work's been happening. And then on Thursday, the Lottery Commission gave licenses to 7 operators. We're still expecting an 8th operator soon. You can deposit your money before that March 11th start date. And then on March 11th, you'll be able to place those bets.
Gotcha. And how will this all work once we get to March 11th?
Yeah, it's really a mobile app. I mean, the law allows for in-person sports books. Those are not ready yet, and the rules around them haven't been finished. So right now, it's just the mobile sports betting part of the law that's going to go into effect, and there'll be apps. You can download these apps on your phone. You can get to them on your computer, certainly your tablet, any device that you have. You'll be able to register an account. You'll have to put in your date of birth, social security number, your identifying information. You'll be able to put money in. There'll probably be promotional codes where you can get more money or free bets, and people will be off and running at that point on March 11th.
And who are the operators who were announced on Thursday?
Yeah, so a lot of the big names in this space: FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, ESPN Bet, Underdog Sports, which is kind of a newcomer to the space, Bet365, and Fanatics Sportsbook. I think I got them all. And so they all had to partner with a North Carolina entity or a team, a facility, an organization that hosts events here, or a tribe. And so that's where we are. And we've got 8 of them. We'll be up and running here pretty shortly. And that leaves room for others to come into the market. There's still several spots left. It will be interesting to see if more operators try to get in pretty early or some wait to get in a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that those operators have to partner with an entity here in North Carolina. So how is that going to work?
Yeah, this was a change made to the bill after it was passed. When the bill originally passed, this provision was not in there, but state lawmakers added it through the state budget, and so now it is part of state law. And so, for example, I'll use Fanatics. They've partnered with the Carolina Hurricanes. You have to have an agreement with one of these 13 entities to get a license. And so I don't know what the deal is between the Fanatics and the Carolina Hurricanes. It's obviously their business agreement. But in order for them to have access to even apply for that license, they have to have an agreement in writing with the Carolina Hurricanes or the Carolina Panthers or the Charlotte Hornets or Quail Hollow Golf Course. The NC Courage is another one of these entities. So that's how that partnership developed. And there's been a little bit of confusion, just because they have that partnership, which means you'll see a lot of Fanatics stuff when you go to PNC Arena. It doesn't, even if you're at PNC Arena, you'll be able to bet on FanDuel or DraftKings or another one. All the operators will have statewide coverage. It's just the way that they had to partner to get market access.
Okay, that makes sense. We're going to take a quick break right there, and we'll be right back. So, Brian, let's talk about the developments happening today on Friday. How does the process of signing up for betting work?
Yeah, just like signing up for sort of any other subscription or something that you might do online, you'll have to put in your name, your phone number, your date of birth, social security, identifying information. They need to prove that you're over 21. And then there'll be some geofencing that takes place that pings your phone to make sure you're actually located in North Carolina. This is why gamblers in North Carolina have not been able to gamble in the past. Those geofences, if that's what you want to call them, have gone up and caught and said, no, you're located in North Carolina. There's not legal gambling. Even though you have an account, even though you're close to the Virginia border, you can't do this. And that's why we've seen people drive up to Virginia to start pinging those cell towers and comply with the law. And so that will all go into effect on Friday. You'll be able to register those accounts. You'll be able to fund those accounts. You can fund them with a credit card. There was some debate when the bill passed about whether people should be allowed to fund these accounts with credit cards, but you can. And there'll be offer codes everywhere. You've probably seen them on your social media, on the television. I imagine, in early March, you're going to see lots of these promo codes to get you to, maybe if you put in 100, they'll match 100 or something like that. Or maybe there'll be some free gear that you get if you sign up with one or the other. What these 7 operators, probably 8 and maybe more, are trying to do is attract as many customers as they can. There's suddenly a new market out there, and there's at least 8 operators. So how are you going to pick which one? Do you go with one that gets that advertises the most, or that gives you the best deal, or maybe you just like the user interface the most, and so they're really competing for customers in this time period.
Gotcha. And what is the advantage of opening signups or 10 days early?
I think what the Lottery Commission said is they wanted to give people a chance to exactly what I was just talking about, kind of test it out, see which one you like the best, see which one may give you the best deal. I think they were trying to avoid a rush situation where this is starting on March 11th and on March 10th is the first day you can get an account. And then maybe you just, people might feel rushed. I think This also is good for the business, right? It allows these operators, these betting companies to build a database, to build, a customer base without just saying, hey, we're open, come on in. This gives them about 2 weeks to try to attract customers so that when it does go live, they already have a little bit of a customer base.
Right. And I'm sure some of these people are first-time bettors, and betting can kind of have its own lingo. I grew up being a horse racing fan. I don't bet, really, partially because I've only ever lived in states that don't allow betting. But also, anytime I've ever seen it, it's kind of part of the sport. Like, there's so many phrases that you kind of have to be familiar with. Can you help people get more familiar with some of that lingo, or is there resources for that?
Sure. I am part of that lingo, but I don't think I know it as well as many people do. Horse racing, to your point, will be allowed in North Carolina. It is not allowed yet. Mm-hmm. Those will be different. They call it advanced deposit wagering. Those operators will probably come into the state a little bit later. I would imagine we'll hear some talk before the Kentucky Derby about horse racing betting coming to the state. But sure, you're going to hear a lot about spreads, and that's just, how much one team is favored to win the game by. You're going to hear, money line, which is just which team is going to win. You'll hear a lot about over-under. How many points are going to be scored in this game between both teams, whether that's a hockey game or a football game or a basketball game. And then, certainly we could be here all day talking about terms, but I think futures is another one that gets a lot of attention. So if you wanted to bet the Carolina Hurricanes to win the Stanley Cup, you could just bet the Hurricanes to win the Stanley Cup. You don't have to bet game by game or series by series in the playoff. You can just place that bet now, and I don't know their odds exactly, but I imagine they're 6-1, 7-1, somewhere in that odds. And with the NCAA tournament, that's another bet you can place on the tournament. Just pick your favorite team to win the tournament. And then the last one I think would be parlays. You'll hear a lot about parlays, single game parlays or just parlays in general. And this is sort of what I've equated to the lottery ticket of gambling. Most times in sports gambling, you've got to bet $10 to win $10, $100 to win $100. It doesn't have that kind of payoff like a lottery does. But parlays kind of increase your odds. So you could bet a couple of dollars on a parlay and win a whole bunch of money. It depends on the odds and how much you put down and all that stuff and how big the parlay is. But what a parlay means is you've got to hit every bet in that parlay. So if it's a 6-team parlay, you would have to win 6 consecutive bets. If it's a 7-team parlay, you'd have to win all 7 of those bets in order to win. And this is a way that the sports gambling companies have made a lot of money, offering these single game parlays. You put 3, 4, maybe 5 bets together, and you hope for that big payout. It's really hard to win 5. It's really hard to win 1 bet, much less 3, 4, 5 in a row, that you placed at the same time.
Yeah, but just a lot of options there, it sounds like. So what sports can you bet on and what sports can't you bet on?
You can pretty much bet on everything. There is a catalog of sports and leagues that the Lottery Commission has put out that you can bet on. If you can think of it, you can probably bet on it. We're talking college, professional, amateur, and I know when people hear amateur, they think high school, not high school. You can't bet on high school athletics. Amateur in their definition sort of means all these Olympic style. You can bet on the Olympics. You can bet on things like the World Cup. I mean, sort of almost anything you can think of. You can bet on the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. You can bet on sports I've never heard of that are only played in foreign countries. That doesn't mean that the operators will offer bets on all those sports. It means that they can offer bets on those sports. FanDuel may decide they don't need to be offering odds on the hot dog eating contest or something else, but they would be allowed to if they decide that's something they want to do.
Gotcha. And as we get closer to March 11th, are there any other developments that we're expecting to happen between now and then?
Yeah, I think the big one was which operators are going to be in business, and then we'll see how many people sign up. There'll be a lot of advertising. There are no major, that was the last major milestone. We'll see if one or two more operators can get up and running before March 11th. But I think the real interesting thing is what happens after March 11th. Like, how big of a deal is this? Does it become sort of the furniture of the state, or does it create massive problems? I mean, I'm just very interested in kind of how the implementation goes. Are there problems? And then sort of what is the long-term ramifications of widespread gambling expansion in the state?
Yeah, a lot to pay attention to. Well, thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. If you've listened to this podcast on WRAL or the WRAL News app, you can also find it in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow the show so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.